Have you ever wondered, with hundreds of new games hitting the app stores every day, how do you make your game stand out? There's no better person to answer this question than the one and only Peter Vesterbacka, former CMO and co-founder of Rovio Entertainment. Peter was pivotal in bringing the Angry Birds brand to unprecedented heights and was named one of the 100 most influential people on the planet by Time magazine in 2011. He is now the founder of Finest Bay Area, Mobile Monday, and Slush, as well as an adjunct professor of innovation and entrepreneurship in Tongji University. Welcome to the stage.
Yes, so good morning, everybody. So I have to start by saying it's great to be back in Singapore. So this is my first trip after the pandemic coming here. So really good to see all of you like in person and not like sitting in front of a screen and Zoom and all of that. But yeah, so maybe first of all, before we get into the branding parts, I think that it's very important to start by saying that the most important thing in gaming is, of course, making great games. So there's no way around that. No matter how good we're at marketing, branding, or anything, we can't. You can't turn a bad game into a good game with marketing. So I was very fortunate when I was Mighty Eagle at Rovio that I was working with Angry Birds. And who here has played the game? So it's like pretty much everybody. So it's a fantastic game, so you all know it and you also know the brand. But I also say that if you're serious about making games, you have to be serious about marketing, about branding. Because who cares if you make the best game ever? And we just heard, there are hundreds of games still hitting the app stores like every day. Who cares if you make the best game ever and nobody hears about it, nobody plays it? It's kind of like a waste of time. And I think that's something that if you look at the market today, and it's not only in games, there's an abundance of products and services. So for me, it's always been about then thinking about like, how do you make sure that people find your game? They find what you are doing. And I think that it's very, very important to think about that all the way through kind of like the development process. So it's not like, okay, we made this game and let's figure out the marketing. So at Rovio, I always say that everything we do is marketing. Or then you could look at it the other way around, that none of the things we do is actually marketing. So you can't have like a separation that, hey, these guys are making the games and hey, you guys there, why don't you go and like figure out like how we can let people know that we made this fantastic game. I think that you should build that from the get-go, that you really think about the marketing every step of the process, marketing and branding. And then, of course, you could also say that, yeah, but it's, like easy for you guys, and Rovio and Angry Birds and these big companies, you can talk about branding. But also it's important to remember where kind of like it started. So actually, the whole company got started out of a game-making competition that I organized like all the way back in 2003. So then, 3 young guys from Aalto University, Niklas, Kim, and Jarno, took part in that competition. And those were the times when our friends at Nokia were still making phones. And they had just come out with like the first smartphones. I think that they had a resolution of, was it like 176 pixels times 2004 pixels. So, not like your 4K screen that you have on your phone today. But anyway, so wanted to create the best possible mobile multiplayer game. I was working at HP, so we wanted to sell servers. Nokia guys wanted to sell phones, so we organized this competition. And then, as I said, Niklas, Kim, and Jarno took part in it, and they won. And then they came to me and asked a very important question. Hey, Peter, like we're students here at Aalto, and we won this competition. What should we do? And it's very easy to answer that. And I always give the same advice to like everybody. You should do what you love to do. And you guys love making games. So why don't you start a company to make games? Like, how difficult can it be? Okay, turned out that, 2003 mobile games, maybe not like the best timing. But actually, as a coincidence, if you look at some of the companies that have started same like year, King, you might have heard about Candy Crush. And then also around that time frame, Ilkka and the guys started a company called Sumea, then became Digital Chocolate, and you might have heard about Supercell. So I think that it's about learning by doing. So actually Rovio ended up making 51 games, and then the 52nd game, Angry Birds, that you all played and heard about. And actually, the company was about to go, bankrupt. So we didn't have massive marketing budget and, like just blast, this red bird all over the place and, like make sure that everybody knows about Angry Birds. So we didn't have any money to spend. And actually this was, before we all started talking about like the UA strategies and, like much less sophisticated marketing and all of that back then. So it wasn't about your day 1 and 7 and 30 and like whatnot. But we talked about that we need to do three things: get, keep, monetize. Get everybody to play the game and keep them playing the game. So this was also free to play. So we then ended up like updating the game, every 4 or 5 weeks, which of course now everybody like, of course, why wouldn't you do that? But yeah, anyway, we did, and we actually then managed to keep. We managed to get a few people, and we managed to keep them playing the game, and we also managed to monetize like a little bit, so it worked out. But yeah, then so we didn't have like a massive budget, and all of that. So we had to actually be smart about it. So again, getting people like Chris at Pocket Gamer to write about the game, and a lot of PR, a lot of activities. Also, one thing that I always like doing is using other people's money to make your brand happen. So we worked a lot with other companies with a much bigger budgets. We did TV ads together with Vodafone, so they had a bit more money to spend, so they featured Angry Birds. We did all these campaigns with Sprint in the US, with AT&T, with all of these guys, and again using other people's money to build a brand, because we didn't have the money, but we had a great game. So we just went knocking on the door and, hey, we should do this together, and like all of that. So that was actually very important. But then one thing that is maybe even more important here, Angry Birds. What is the first thing that happens when you first hear Angry Birds? You ask why. Why are the birds angry? And once you ask that question, the brand is stuck in your head forever. That's how it works. So if you are a startup, if you are a small game studio, you don't have unlimited budget. And I mean, even if you're like a big company, typically you don't have unlimited budgets. You have to think about like, how can you make the brand work for you? And with Angry Birds, the brand is a brand that begs for a question. So you should always have a brand that creates a reaction of some sort, ideally a question. Then you'll remember it. So you should really, really think about the brand. And the brand is not just, that, okay, let's put some visual representation for this, and like then, come up with some like catchy phrase or whatever. But the brand is everything. It's the story. It's about like what you do. It's about you and the company and everything. And with Angry Birds, of course, the story is very easy. I mean, you have birds, eggs, pigs stealing eggs, Angry Birds. That's it. Very easy to share with your friends. And always when I have companies pitching to me about, like a new game or a new product, new service or something like that, I always ask that, what can I tell my friends about what you're doing? With Angry Birds, it's very easy to remember, so you can tell all your friends that, hey, you should check out this game, Angry Birds. I don't know like how many games I've been pitched, and they've been like really good games, but then I can't remember like what was the name of the game. I mean, and then you like kill the word of mouth and the virality like right away. So really, really think about it from the get-go. I think it's like super important. Then of course, like with Angry Birds, we also looked at, like, okay, what does it look like to have like a red bird, as #1 in the App Store? And of course, looked like very good, but it's also like the red color jumps at you. So it's not a coincidence. I'm always wearing a red hoodie. I was doing that before Rovio, during Rovio times, and obviously after. And I can't tell you like how many times people have come up to me, in a room like this, everybody else wearing black or some boring color like that. and then with red color, they automatically come to me. That's what you want to have with your game in the App Store as well. That just like pops, one way or another. So you really want to make sure that you stand out, because if you have like hundreds of other games coming out the same day in the App Store, you better think about that. Think about like what people can tell their friends about this great game that they just downloaded. So very important. So if you are serious about making games, you should be like very, very serious about making sure that everybody knows about the great games you make. So you shouldn't like neglect and think about marketing and like all of that as an afterthought, but it actually should be at the core. And I think there are many, many examples of, like how important brand is. Also, if you like, you might have like a great game or even a not so great game, and then, look at, for example, what the Niantic guys did. I mean, they were building these like location-based games for like quite a while, and then they thought about, okay, why don't we call it like Pokemon Go? And a few of you might have heard about Pokemon Go and have even played it. So again, I would argue that the brand totally like made that game. Without the Pokemon brand, without the characters and all of that, it's not necessarily, wouldn't have been a hit. Or I would say most definitely wouldn't have. So you should also be looking for these kind of things, that are there like cool brands out there that you could actually work together with. Of course, you should always try to build your own brand, but that's also one way is to look at kind of like what's already out there. Then you shouldn't just, okay, you come up with a brand, you made a great game, but you really have to kind of like live and breathe what you're doing. So I mean, you should show on a company, on a personal level, that you are passionate about what you're doing, that you love what you do. And actually the question, like when Niklas and the guys asked me what they should do, and said that you should do what you love to do. So they love making games, they started Rovio, and they started doing what they love to do. And that was also always the case, that when people ask like how do we decide what kind of games make? We make games that we love to play ourselves. And I think that this goes for not just games, for any product and service. I mean, if you don't actually like enjoy what you're doing, if you don't like love the product, the game that you're working on, like why bother? And we all know, like companies, you can tell if people there actually love what they do. If companies where people like hate what they do, probably they're not making very good games. And we have a few examples of that in our industry as well. So, it's important. Passion, love, these kind of things. And in our business, it's about feelings. So that's something that we shouldn't kind of like lose track of. Then if we look at, why are there so many great games coming from Finland, coming from Sweden? Okay, Angry Birds, but then, Supercell, Small Giant. You heard about like, Minecraft, Candy Crush, and so on. So of course, I mean, Nordic countries, like very creative, fantastic education, like all of that. But I think that this has a lot to do with the talent density. Like in Finland, we have 5,000 people working on games. We hire 1,500 every year. So it's very, very high talent density. And we hire from all over the planet. When I was at Rovio, we had 47 different nationalities. So it's, not just about like Finnish people, or, I'm sure it's the same in Sweden. Very, very global, very, very international. Talent from all over the planet. And not just the people who make the games, but because you have such high talent density, you can find people who can help you with the branding, with the marketing. You'll find like super, super sophisticated user acquisition, strategists, and people who really know in great, great depth their particular area. Be it branding, or be it like then how to optimize for like I don't know, PlayStation 5 or whatever. You'll find people who know how to do all of this, and it's very like collaborative. So if you don't know how to do the branding and the marketing, you can find people who will do that together with you. I think that is very, very important, any successful ecosystem, that you have to have the density, the talent density. It's a little bit like if I go to, say LA, and I go to Starbucks and I bump into a random person, I guarantee you can ask that person that, okay, tell me about your movie. And then they will start telling you that, hey, I've been working on this script for 10 years and, it's going to be, amazing. And I'm thinking I'm going to put like a Brad Pitt, in the lead role. And if they're not, working on a script, they're probably like a director or like wannabe actor or something like that. So that's what talent density is all about. If I go to Starbucks in Helsinki and I stop a random person, and then I can ask him or her, hey, please tell me about your game. And then they will start telling, yeah, it's like a match 3 game and it has these RPG elements and I have this amazing idea, around Web3 and monetization and like all of that. That's how it works. That's why you can expect to see fantastic games coming from, the Nordic countries, from Finland, from Sweden, from that area, because there's amazing talent density. You have more people working on games than anywhere else per capita. That's how it works. And if you need to, figure out like anything about games, you can find the people there. So that's kind of like why you can expect to see fantastic games coming from our part of the world in the future as well. But yeah, I'll stop here. So thank you very much, and I think we have time for questions as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. It looks like we already got our first question there. And, okay. How do you see the future of the gaming market for India?
So I think it will be huge, because India, of course, has a massive population, and it's very easy to then look at the world. So we already know that gaming is huge in China, and like all the it actually really correlates with the population, and of course a little bit with like the standard of living and all that. But I think that it's very simple that all people love playing games. Everybody plays games nowadays, and this is also something that wasn't the case kind of like before Angry Birds. And if you go like way back, we used to have gamers, but it's like just as stupid to talk about gamers today as, like, oh, we have TV watchers or movie goers or something like that. Everybody, consumes games nowadays. Everybody plays games. So India, lots of people, all of, Indians will play games. So it's a huge market, huge opportunity.
Nice.
Okay.
How has Angry Birds decided to go for a movie series?
Yeah. So actually, if you look at what we did at Angry Birds, and like again all about the brand. So we very early on we acquired a movie studio or animation studio. We started making animated shorts again to build the brand. We went into consumer products. So you might have seen the Angry Birds plush toys, and some of you might had drank the soft drink or visited one of the parks and all of that. And then people started telling us that, hey, like, wait a minute, you're like a games company. You should focus on making games. Then they all said that, hey, we're a brand company. Of course, we make games. We make fantastic games. But we are very, very focused on providing Angry Birds branded experiences in all forms and shapes for our fans. So of course, movies, help build brand as well. So of course, we made a movie, another one. So different kind of like way of approaching this, not just like making games, but building brands, building experiences, branded experiences for our fans. And of course, our fans wanted to watch movies too.
Thank you. Looks like we have a question from the crowd there.
Hey Peter, amazing delivery, great talk, thank you. Psst Branding from Sweden, 2 questions. Can you talk about the move from premium to free to play, and how much was that driven by outside factors in the market, and how much was that your strategy? And second question, I've been meaning to ask this since 2009. Why do the birds need a slingshot? They have wings, they can fly. So I think that, so I left Rovio in 2016 after we got the first movie out. So can't like comment too much on like post that. But I was there, during big part of like the transition from premium to free to play and all of that.
So first of all, have to remember that when Angry Birds came out, we didn't have, like in-app purchases. Since like you're like, what? You couldn't do that. You couldn't. So I mean that kind of like happened later, and then it happened even later. Like first Apple, then Android, and all of that. And of course, free to play is, I would say, like the most effective way to get the games out there and monetize. So I mean that's and it has also led, of course, to some of the games being just very effective like monetization schemes. So I think we have many companies that yes, they are games companies, but they are actually companies that are very, very effective in creating powerful like monetization schemes. And there's of course nothing wrong with that, but still I think that it's all about making great games. But free to play is effective way to then monetize those great games. For us at Rovio, and like moving from premium to then kind of like free to play, I don't think that it was like a very smooth process, and there are like many like details to that. But yeah, I would say that wasn't very effective, wasn't very fast, and it was only then like I would say Angry Birds 2 came out, and even that to start with wasn't like super effective at kind of like monetizing. So it was like a pretty steep learning curve, and I think that like all of us always learning. So I think that can always get better at that. But yeah, then the other question about why we needed the slingshot, because birds. Okay, our birds don't really like fly, so that's part of it. But actually, the slingshot was a pretty late addition to the game, because first it was just that you were kind of like just kind of like throwing or like flipping these birds. Anyway, then we added the slingshot, and then it became obvious for everybody how to play the game. So how like you give the game to like a 2-year-old, and they will it takes them like 2 seconds and they are playing the game. So I think that that's also part of kind of like brilliance of the game design there, that it's really is a game that you just pick up and you can play like immediately. And of course, that's how great games work and should work. That you don't need to think about it, just like start playing and ready to go. So that was kind of like why the slingshot is so let's say key to the success actually.
All right,
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It looks like we have a few more questions, but you could definitely find Peter after this. Really difficult to miss with the red hoodie. Thank you so much, Peter.
Hey, thank you.